and she'll immediately report the case to the dorm master to take care of it. Simon thanks her, and they shift to the room, but Hayward asks Simon if Kajin really won't wake up. Simon says he is not sure, but Kajin tells them to do whatever they want when he is asleep, so Hayward suddenly throws the books on the floor. Simon gets startled, but they see Kajin in a deep sleep, and Simon says he doesn't think Kajin is a bad person as long as they keep his rules. After some while, Simon and Hayward return to the room after taking a shower, and Hayward tells Simon that half of the students will be gone soon as their protection period is over. When Simon asks what it is, Hayward explains it's the period when the professors can't officially evaluate the students, give grades, and they cannot talk to the students in private. At this time, professors can't expel the students at their discretion, and they can't harm the students. So many things are forbidden, so he doesn't remember all of them. Simon gets worried about thinking the professors are cutting him slack with everything that happened today, and Hayward tells him after the protection period is over, expulsion happens all the time. Hayward says they can get jobs pretty much everywhere if they hold on until the first grade ends. Hayward says if Simon survives the intense competition and officially becomes a graduate, he'll become a leader during an era in which whole continents are moving. Hayward says Simon could become anything except a member of the royal family, but when Simon asks if Hayward wants to become a royal, he replies there might be advantages to becoming one, but that's not his goal. Hayward tells Simon that he wants to earn money and will be really busy from now on. Suddenly, Simon opens his subspace and takes out a box, but Hayward gets shocked and asks what it is, to which Simon tells him it's the skeleton kit for an island ratman in the box. Simon says he has not taken a prep class, so he bought some things to practice, but Hayward says they just got out of the class, and Simon is studying more. Simon says he just doesn't want to forget everything he felt earlier, but when Hayward asks if Simon is going to make it in the right order, Simon replies he'll not because he is going with his guts again this time. Simon makes the gray rat skeleton again as he did in class, but its one leg is wobbly. Simon apologizes to his undead, but when he suddenly breaks it, Hayward asks why he did that because he made it so well. Simon remembers Aaron taught them that skeletons formed with summonology magic tend to take on their original form, and its original name was Restoring Force. Simon thinks if he remembers the order, the assembly shouldn't be hard, so he uses Restore Power, and the bones immediately start assembling on their own. Simon thanks Hayward when he says seeing it come together again is incredible. Hayward feels sleepy and tells Simon he should also go to sleep, but Simon wants to try the spell more. Hayward decides to go to bed first, and when he asks what's the first class tomorrow, Simon tells him it's Darkness Dynamics. Simon continues his practice, and this time, he follows the diagram, and he makes notes simultaneously on how the bones will not attach and how they'll perform the best. Simon knows assembly formulas are the standards that Necromancers established over a long time, so he thinks there must have been numerous trials and errors to reach the point he is right now. Repeating the assembly himself, Simon realizes how great the previous generations of Necromancers were. Simon thinks no matter how reasonable the structure is, there is a more effective arrangement for it to move, so he decides to research it more properly. Simon remembers the structures his father used to help the people in the fief and the skeletons that Lorraine used to take control of the gang. Simon wonders what he lacks compared to them, and he can't wait for the next class. The next morning, during the Darkness Dynamics class, Professor Eric Ora teaches them the importance of his course. Eric tells them the darkness creates the miracle of black magic, and to understand this, they need to understand the flow of the darkness, rune words, and the mechanism of the magic circle. Eric explains the origin of the rune words goes back to the eternally burning torch of the Temple of Del, and at first, no one questioned why the torch didn't go out because people then deemed doubting God was blasphemous in itself. One day, they noticed that the ashes from the torch resembled letters, and they were astonished by the fact that mere letters were behind a miracle like the burning torch. Eric says that is the story behind the origin of rune words, and the sorcerers and necromancers who discovered the ancient rune words made countless improvements to create the modern rune of today. Eric draws the two magic circles, which are examples of using rune words, and after ending the lecture, he gives them an assignment to complete by the next class. Eric tells them to use one of the magic circles that can be activated that they learned during the class and provides the ways to modify it, the calculation, and the formula they'll use to make it work. The bell rings, and Eric announces that 3 students he calls on during the next class will make a presentation on their assignment. After the class, Hayward whines that Darkness Dynamics is hard, and it feels like the time he studied arithmetic with his dad. But Simon thinks it's not that bad. Simon didn't understand more than half of it, but he liked how Eric described everything one by one. For the next magic combat class, they go to the ground, and while they are looking for the professor, suddenly they see something coming their way, and they feel the ground shaking. Suddenly, the hippos surround the students, and a guy sitting on one of them says Professor Hengpeng will hold her class at Roque Mountain. The guy tells the students to get on the hippos, and Hayward tells Simon that Professor Hengpeng is an oddball in Kizan, and she camps in different parts of Roque Mountains. Meanwhile, a student tells the assistant guy to put some rug on the hippos for the students to get on, but suddenly, that guy jumps on that student, making him fall. The student asks what that guy is trying to do and tells him that a mere servant like him can't stand in their way as they are Kizan students. The guy furiously asks why the new students are so clueless these days, and they should call him Ta, not a servant. The student immediately apologizes to Ta because Ta is sitting on him, and Simon feels weird to see the nobles don't change. But Hayward tells Simon he is an exception among the nobles. Ta tells them one hippo can hold up to 3 students, so Simon and Hayward immediately get on one. Simon notices a girl is trying to get on their hippo, so he helps her to get on the hippo. Ta tells the students to hold on tight, and the hippos start running towards the destination, but the students feel they are going to fall. Ta tells them to overcome it with strong will as it's also a part of the training and says if they fall off, they will get trampled by the hippos and die. Ta scares them by saying there is always an accident or 2 every year, due to which some students start yelling for help, but the hippos continue towards their way. After some while, the students reach the destination and are provided some drinks to relax. Suddenly, the students startle when Hengpeng appears and welcomes them to her class. Once, a gigantic undead monster, Kundar Hydra, burned 4 fiefs to the ground. Hengpeng is a legend among the Necromancers as the one who fought against the mega undead monster for 5 days and broke Kundar's 100 necks all by herself to achieve dramatic victory. Hengpeng tells the students to stand up and line up in a column of 4s and tells them to get going, but the students are confused to see where she is running. Hengpeng tells them that a sound mind and body are the basics of magical combat, and the students are shocked to see she is fantastic, and they wonder how she can run like that. The students start running, but they are amazed that she is on another level, and Hengpeng teaches them the basics of magical combat, which is to strengthen their body with the darkness and learn combat strategies that use their body. Hengpeng tells the students that the Necromancers that use magical combat are called the Battle Necromancers, and if students reach a certain level of training like them, the darkness will flow out of their body as soft as silk. Hengpeng shows them that the darkness would form the shape of clothing, which they call the dark robe. Hengpeng, while running towards the woods, tells the kids to watch out because there are a lot of trees, and Hayward says he is jealous of the talented kids in magical combat. Simon sees some kids skillfully following Hengpeng, and he thinks Hayward is right that some kids look like they are having fun. Hayward is extremely tired, and when he asks how Simon is okay, Simon replies his hometown also has a lot of mountains, and it's fun for him to run like this after a long time. After reaching a cliff, Hengpeng tells the kids to jump over the valley in front of them using the darkness. Hengpeng explains they can do it with a little trick, just like when they flare up the darkness on their palm. They instead send it out through the soles of their feet. Hengpeng uses this technique by flying up in the air, flipping, and landing on the ground, but the students get shocked. Hengpeng jumps to the cliff on the other side, and some students also jump after her, but they land with difficulty. Hengpeng tells them if they release the darkness a bit too late, it can get dangerous, so they should try to release it earlier next time. Meanwhile, Simon thinks he has to spring off darkness, but Hayward says Simon is overthinking, so he decides to take off first. Hayward jumps at the other cliff, and his landing is slightly off, but he tells Simon he can also do this. Simon finally jumps, and when he successfully lands on the other cliff, Hayward celebrates because Simon's jump was the highest. Simon is happy that he did it, but Hengpeng and the other kids are shocked he did such a great job. However, Hector grits. Hengpeng says it's good most of the students successfully passed the valley, but they have to wait for the students who fell down to the valley, and once they are back, they'll move to the next area. After some while, when students go to the next area, Hayward shows Simon the list of students they should try to recruit for the group classes. As the classes will start next week, Hayward thought they should prepare, so he listed everyone's names, strengths, and personalities. Simon is impressed that while he was barely following the lectures, Hayward managed to find the time to observe others, even during the class. Simon wonders if that is the reason Hayward came to him and not Hector because he thought he wouldn't get along with Hector that well after observing him. When Simon asks what's Hayward's opinion based on his research so far, Hayward tells him that most of the students in his class are highly skilled, but that one girl who rode the hippo with them might get kicked out as soon as the student protection period is over. Hayward tells Simon that only 2 kids failed to jump across the valley in their class, and she is